Okay, everyone, I'm back, and we're going to talk some more about this earthquake, or this earth quaking. All right, we know that up here in verse 50 of Matthew 27, that Jesus yielded up the ghost. He died right here, okay? And then right after that, we see that the earth did quake. And I pointed out in the previous video, there's a difference in the earth did quake and a great earthquake, okay? So, I fully believe what the Lord is showing me here is this is about the earth shaking. So, whatever takes place here is about an earth shaking, not simply just a regional earthquake. That's what we're accustomed to. Whatever takes place here causes a massive shaking that the whole planet experiences. Okay, we saw in chapter... Oh, I'm getting ahead of myself. Hold it right there. Okay, this quake takes place when Christ died, okay? And I told you across the page we had another quake going on here. And that takes place, it says right here, and behold, there was a great earthquake. Now this is a great earthquake. For the angel of the Lord descended from heaven and came and rolled back the stone from the door and sat upon it. So this is Resurrection Day, okay? Because that was the day the stone got rolled back. So here we have an earth shaking when Christ died, and we have a great earthquake when the tomb was opened on Resurrection Day. So here we have a quake at the beginning of the 3 days of darkness, and we have a quake at the end of 3 days of darkness. But now keep in mind, this first one is going to be something that is experienced on a global level, okay? Now, having said that, I pondered what all this meant, okay? Because here, the Lord has shown me that we do have a 3 days of darkness. He has shown me that there will be spiritual things taking place within that 3 days of darkness for the bride and for the backslider and for the lost. Well, now he's showing me what's taking place that I guess you could say is on the dark side of what is spiritual. All right, let me get my thoughts together here. Okay, let me back up just a hair. So the Lord has shown us we have 3 days of darkness, that it starts with an earthquake, it ends with an earthquake, and that there are spiritual things going to be going on within these 3 days of darkness. Okay, so now we need to know where this darkness came from, okay? Now let me show you. We go back to Revelations 9. Let me get there. Okay. We get back to Revelations 9. And this is where the Lord started us at, okay? All about the darkness. All right. So we see that we had this heavenly occurrence where the star fell. All right. And it goes on to say, the star fell into the earth, and to him was given the key to the bottomless pit. So we know that whatever's going on with the star is connected in opening the bottomless pit, which I know the Lord, and it's pretty obvious here, that this is a volcano, okay? So here we have this heavenly occurrence. We have this opening of the pit. But how did this star falling link to the opening of the pit. Okay, so when the pit opens is when the darkness begins, correct? And the pit is a volcano, okay? Volcanoes are affected by seismic activity, which is all about earthquakes. So, what the Lord showed me is that we have this heavenly occurrence, and then we have an earthquake. Now, if you remember correctly, there were 3 hours of darkness before Christ died. And the Lord showed me that was important. But He also woke me one morning because I was pondering that 3 hours of darkness. And I was asking the Lord the night before when I was doing Bible study, and I was perplexed by this 3 hours of darkness before Christ died. And so I asked the Lord about it. And the next morning, He woke me somewhere around 5 o'clock in the morning and told me 3 hours is as 3 days. 3 hours is as 3 days. So I took that to mean, also I had asked Him about the 3 days of darkness. Were we really going to experience darkness? Well, I feel like He answered both those questions with this one thing that He told me. 3 hours is as 3 days. Okay, the 3 hours were dark. So that's telling me the 3 days will be dark. And the 3 hours, it says, is as 3 days, is actually, we need to be looking at a 3-day. That's how I'm taking it now. We need to be looking at a 3-day time span. Now, I might be mistaken on that, but either way, we're looking at a 3-hour or 3-day time span from when this heavenly occurrence takes place. Because if you remember, what caused the 3 hours of darkness was an eclipse, which is an heavenly occurrence, okay? So we had a heavenly occurrence before Christ died and the earthquake took place. So here we're seeing a heavenly occurrence. And then an earthquake begins the 3 days of darkness. Okay? I hope y'all can follow this because it's hard to explain and know that it's being understood by others because I know what's in my head. Anyway, we have earthquakes on either side of the 3 days. We have a heavenly occurrence, 3 hours or 3 days. I'm not sure which. I'm thinking it's 3 days before the earthquake comes. And that is based on the 3 hours of darkness that we had before, that we see in the scriptures before Christ actually died. All right. So we're going to have a heavenly occurrence, an earthquake at the beginning of the 3 days of darkness. Then we got to look at the darkness, and I want to get in that into the next video, okay? I'll be back.